What's going on? Welcome into the Bills Chat halftime show. The Bills trail the Cincinnati Bengals by a score of 21-11 in a game that looks all too familiar to the playoff game against the Bengals a handful of years ago, where there is snow on the ground. The Bengals are carving up the Bills defense, doing whatever they want, particularly on third down. And it looks like, at least so far, that one team is having trouble slipping in the snow. That would be the Bills, just like the playoff game. And the other team really isn't. So hopefully that gets corrected. As RJ is checking in and says, should have been 16 seconds on the clock with multiple timeouts. McDermott is a coward. I agree, RJ. There should have been more time on the clock. Even the Bengals initially touched it. It's not dead there, but when they ended up downing the ball, there was 12 seconds left. I didn't think McDermott was going to go for it anyway. What the heck is wrong with our third and long defense? I hear you, Scott. Also sick of coverage. McDermott. Everyone thought it was Frazier years ago. I hear you. And East Malie says, sure hope the defense could keep it going. Okay. I had put out on Twitter that I have reason for optimism for the defense. And I am serious when I say this. That was as bad of a first half of football as you can probably play defensively. Okay. They didn't get a single stop outside of the end of the half. They did, I guess they did get a stop there with like 20 seconds left. But, the Bengals went through the Bills like a hot knife through butter. So where is my optimism coming from? We have two other examples of feeling like this about the Bills defense in the first half. Houston and Atlanta. I know both games the Bills lost. But in those games, the defense figured it out in the second half and did their job in the second half. And we ended up being very angry at the defense at halftime and very angry at the offense at the end of the game. I think it's within the range of outcomes and maybe even likely outcomes that the defense figures it out here against the Bengals. Now, figuring it out against the Bengals doesn't mean they're going to shut them out like they did the Texans. This is a different animal they're facing. Hold them to field goals. Force a real punt, not a punt when there's 20 seconds left in the half. But that's a tall, tall order. The most frustrating play of the first half was Ty Johnson slipping. Because if he doesn't slip, it is punch for punch, just this all-time entertaining shootout. Instead, the Bills feel like they're playing massively from behind. They did have a chance to double dip at the end, and unfortunately, they didn't get the first down on fourth down, and luckily, they stopped the Bengals from doing anything at the end of the half. Save us, Josh. Kyle, if I had the answers, I would be making a lot of money for the Bills. Unfortunately, I don't right now when it comes to what the Bills have on their roster and what the answers are. I do think there are some things fundamentally the Bills could be doing differently that they just haven't been doing this game. I know when you think about Maxwell Harrison and Tre'Davious White pressing T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, but Greg Olson brought it up on the broadcast. This is tough conditions for receivers to get off the press. We are seeing way too many examples, much like the playoff game from several years ago, where the Bills are just playing this off coverage. Get in their face, force them to get off the line. All right. I don't know, man. The Bengals offense is a different type of shark. It is. They look considerably better than they did last week, Caleb. I hear you. But right now, the Bills aren't doing themselves any favors. There's no pass rush. They did get the one blitz by Christian Benford, which it felt like, man, that could have been a sack fumble, but did not happen. On offense, we can't do anything that isn't spamming Cook or, hey, Josh Allen, go do something. It's funny, Kyle, on the touchdown and then subsequent 2-point conversion, that's what it felt like, right? Josh Allen scrambling around on fourth down, looking for anybody to make a play. And then Khalil Shakir breaks open for a touchdown. And that was much of the same for a fourth down earlier in the drive where he scrambles around and finds Gabe Davis. I do think that the 2-point conversion was a well-designed play, but Josh Allen, again, goes into scramble mode before he finds Kincaid for the 2-point conversion. This is nothing we don't already know. This team does not have a lot of playmakers. If you want to see what a team with playmakers looks like, look at the other team they're playing today. As you see T. Higgins making a miraculous catch. You see Mike Gesicki, who's a Bills killer, just catching everything in his radius. And that's just not what the Bills do. Keon Coleman is a player who has a skill set that you think you could utilize today. But man, that one incompletion to Keon Coleman, and I understand there's snow on the ground and it's slick out there, but that is a you want to talk about a receiver rounding out his route. Josh Allen threw it where he thought Keon Coleman would be after the break, and Keon Coleman basically did a long lap to get around, almost looked like a candy cane instead of just cutting and stopping. Maybe I'm just saying candy cane because I'm in the Christmas spirit here. Our offense, okay, we already read that one. I hope you're right. Thanks, Caleb. I appreciate that. Offensive line went from best protecting one in the league to allowing bull rushes from the Bengals. Yeah, I wish they had shown a replay of what happened to Deion Dawkins there. I know it was a five-man rush. I didn't see if it was a stunt that fooled Dawkins, but it is disappointing to see Dawkins get beat in that scenario. Every replay they showed of that fourth down stop was more so in the area of who Josh Allen could have thrown to, which, spoiler alert, nobody was open. Khalil Shakir and Gabe Davis were trying to do some sort of rub route combination where Shakir comes over on a slant over the middle, but the Bengals were all over it. It would have taken a miraculous catch by Shakir for that play to have a chance anyway. No one talks about Gesicki and Fant. Imagine one of those weapons on our offense. They are a very good tight end duo. Now, they're a little bit duplicative. I don't know if I said that word right, but it's not like a Knox Kincaid scenario where you have the one receiver and the one blocker. They're both more on the receiving end of things when it comes to being a tight end. But man, Gasecki's come up big multiple times today in contested catch situations and then forced the holding on Cam Lewis. The Bills just do not have an answer for Mike Gesicki right now. You've seen him roast Taron Johnson. He just beat Cam Lewis. They certainly don't have a linebacker that can match up with him. I wonder if maybe you'll see as this game goes on more Jordan Hancock potentially. But right now, it's tough sledding out there for the Bills defense. It doesn't help when T. Higgins is allowed to OPI into oblivion on underthrown balls are rewarded with DPI. Yeah, that's more of a rule issue because by the letter of the law, that was DPI. But I hate that call because the ball was not going to be complete. And it used to be where if the ball wasn't catchable, they wouldn't call defensive pass interference. I feel like now they've kind of morphed that rule into if it's not catchable as in out of bounds. Anywhere on the playing field is considered catchable. So you can throw it 10 yards underneath. The one thing I thought, Zach, was when they showed the replay of why the ball was underthrown, it looked like Dayon Walker hit Joe Burrow's hand. And if any part of Walker's hand, it was up high on the wrist, if any part of Walker's hand makes contact with the ball, that's technically a tipped ball. And then pass interference is not allowed to be called. I would have liked to see a better replay because honestly, that could have been something McDermott challenged. I also on the Chase Brown touchdown on the one replay I saw, it looked like it was more questionable that he even caught it, but they ended up ruling it a touchdown. But the refs are not the story here, and that's not at all what you're saying either. I agree. The frustration with the DPI rule. T. Higgins is huge though. He boxes out guys. Keon should watch his tape. T. Higgins is exactly what the Bills hoped they were getting when they got Keon Coleman, and it has not come to fruition, not even close. T. Higgins is, in my opinion, a number one receiver on most teams in the entire league. It just so happens that he might be running side by side with the best receiver in the sport and Jamar Chase. You know, the Bengals are hardly a blueprint for how to build your roster. They're very lopsided when it comes to being offensively driven. They have a lot of money tied up in Burrow, a lot of money tied up in Higgins and Chase. And yeah, it's fun. It's great for fantasy. And days like this, when you can't stop them, it's like, man, this is how you do it. Their defense is what continues to hold them back. And the Bengals might go on to win this game, but what might keep the Bengals out of the playoffs is the fact that their defense could not get stops when it mattered at home against the Bears and against the Jets. So I know the Bills defense has struggled. They are not as bad about as the Bengals. I do think what we're seeing a lot today is just receivers making plays. And some of these balls that they're catching, I don't know. There's been a couple times that Gasecki wasn't necessarily open, but he just made the play. And it would be nice to see a Bills receiver do that from time to time, but they don't have the horses to do that. And if you pay attention to, I think it was Thad Brown or Dan Fates, one of those two, they always do such a good job of getting video of the players showing up to the stadium. when you watch Joshua Palmer walk in today, the limp he had, holy cow, like it makes you wonder if he's going to be back anytime soon. So help is not on the way for the Bills. Help for the Bills offensively is going to come in the form of Brandon Cooks continuing to learn the system. It's going to come massively in the form of Dalton Kincaid getting healthy. I was not a fan of him being active today. I did not think the risk was worth the reward with a hamstring slash knee injury that he's not 100% from. He's a guy that the Bills have to have as right as possible to really have an honest look at making this playoff run. And I tweeted about that last night and got some pushback on that. Like, hey, the Bills have to make the playoffs. I hear you all. I hear you all. Trust me, I hear you all. The Bills have 8 wins. They have 2 games left against the Browns and the Jets. Okay, so I feel like we're in a spot here where if we can assume that they're going to get those 2 wins, that puts them at 10, which means they have to get one of the Bengals, the Eagles, and the Patriots to lock in. And I think they could also get in with 10. We'll see how it goes. But it's not going to do them any good to get in if Kincaid's not healthy. This offense becomes a pop gun offense. Take away James Cook, take away the Bills. You need Kincaid healthy. Ideally, you have Palmer out there or Keon Coleman developing, but the Keon Coleman developing thing doesn't seem to be imminent. We've seen no signs of wanting to believe in that. Tyrell Shavers has been a great story, a fantastic run blocker, but he's not a difference maker. Gabe Davis is playing his role as a big-bodied X. Again, not a difference maker at this stage. You can tell he's not full speed, and Khalil Shakir is even hobbling around out there. So this is a tough situation this wide receiver group is in. Insanity is doing the same thing, expecting a different outcome. So what's interesting about that, Jonas, and this is where I'm going to leave it, is the Bills made a philosophical shift when they played the Bengals in the playoff game to switch to more of a running offense because they were overpowered in that game. They could not run the ball on the Bengals, and that was a classic Buffalo weather playoff game, and the Bills looked like the team that wasn't ready for the moment. And that's when you saw the Bills turn into more of a run-heavy offense. They fired Ken Dorsey midseason the next year, gave Joe Brady the keys, and turned it into a run-first, as much as you can be in 2025 offense that's excellent at running, but almost stripped away all the weapons in the passing game to do so. And now you're seeing a Bills team playing a lesser version of the Bengals. This Bengals team is not as good as the one that beat the Bills in the playoffs, particularly defensively. And this Bengals team is having the same success offensively against the Bills, so that's not better. And then offensively, the Bills are moving the ball, but I'm curious to see how this game ends up. If the Bills win this game, which I still think is very much in the realistic range of outcomes, then, no harm, no foul. You got your 9th win. You're on the way to the playoffs. Go Bills. If this game continues to look lopsided, continues to look like the Bengals are a class above the Bills, particularly in this kind of weather, then what have you been doing the last 3 years? Shipping out Stephon Diggs, letting Mac Hollins go for a cheeseburger to New England. You couldn't even be bothered to keep him around. And then building up the weapons with guys like Curtis Samuel and Joshua Palmer to try to get gadget guys that can't actually threaten defenses. So that's where we're at. It is still a regular season game. It's not going to define the season. The Bills are very much in this game. Luca and I think Luca will be back tomorrow morning for Bills Bengals post game. Come on, Bills, make it a happy one. These halftime shows have been kind of depressing along the way. But we'll see if they can turn it around today. And then Luca and I, or Stokes and I, will be back on Wednesday for a preview of Bills Patriots, the big AFC East showdown for Bills Chat Live. I am Josh McCarty. Enjoy the second half. I will see you all next week on the Bills Chat halftime show.